I found out my fiancée cheated during her bachelorette party, and when I canceled the wedding she cried, her parents begged, and everyone called me cold, but I refused to marry a lie. I almost didn't look at the iPad. It was one of those dumb domestic impulses you get when you're doing something else. You're wiping down the counter and your brain remembers a to-do from 3 days ago and suddenly you're elbow deep in a drawer. Lila had left her tablet charging in the kitchen before she flew out to Nashville for her bachelorette, and because we share an Apple account for the calendar and nothing else, the Messages app occasionally burps up a notification it shouldn't. Most of the time it's a reminder about a florist or a screenshot of cake toppers with faces that don't look like faces. That night it was a preview bubble that said, "Delete this after," and a string of champagne emojis. I pressed my thumb to the corner like I could put the words back in. Then I tapped. The thread was named Champagne Problems because the universe has a sense of humor. Lila's maid of honor, Rowan, had posted a video with the sound off. The caption was a row of fire emojis and the kind of wink people use when they want plausible deniability. The video was 2 seconds of Lila on a bar stool, a man standing between her knees, his hands already too familiar. The second clip was at a different bar, Lila with the same man outside under streetlights, her fingers in his hair, his mouth on hers, the camera jolting like someone was laughing and couldn't hold the phone steady. A third clip, a hotel hallway and a door swinging open and a hand, hers, pulling him inside while Rowan whispered, "Go, bride." The door shut. The camera turned accidentally toward a mirror and I saw Rowan's eyes wide and delighted like she'd just filmed a comet. The counter under my hands went cold. I watched all 3 videos once, twice, and then the sick thing grief does to your brain made me watch again as if a different ending might show up if I kept looking. I scrolled up. The messages were the usual haze of aggressive fun until they weren't. Best last night. No evidence, ladies. He was obsessed with you. You earned it. Then a text from Lila in the morning that made my ribs hurt. "We need to delete the hallway video." A minute later, actually delete all of them. I stared at the screen until the iPad went dark from inactivity and my face looked back at me, fluorescent and stupid. I didn't call her. I did nothing dramatic. I unloaded the dishwasher because the body likes a task when the heart can't decide between screaming and disappearing. I put her favorite mug on the shelf and stood on my toes to push it back a little too far, as if distance is something you can do to a cup. Then I went for a run and ran until my lungs burned so I could call the pain something else. When Lila landed 2 days later, I picked her up at the airport. She smelled like duty-free perfume and airport pretzels and the high of a weekend that thinks it changed your life. She talked in bursts about the rooftop bar, about the hat with the veil they made her wear, about the pedal tavern I had begged her not to spend money on. It was harmless, she said about everything, which is a word that sounds like truth and isn't. She put her hand on my thigh the way she always did at red lights, a small, practice claim, and I felt my own leg like it belonged to a statue. At home she showered and came out in a t-shirt and the ring I had proposed with, a modest oval we both pretended wasn't expensive because we'd split the cost and called it practical. She leaned against the counter and told me she'd missed me. She asked about the seating chart like nothing visceral had happened to it. "I saw the videos," I said. My voice surprised me. It was calm in the way a museum is calm. "What videos?" She was good at this game. Everyone gets good at something. "Champagne Problems," I said. "The hallway. The bar." For a second, there was nothing. Then she went through 5 faces in order: confusion, offense, fear, calculation, and a kind of injured dignity that made me want to flip the table. "That's not fair," she said. "You shouldn't have been reading my messages." "I wasn't snooping," I said. "They showed up. And it doesn't matter how I know. It matters that I know." She laughed without humor. "It was a joke," she said. "It was nothing. It was a dare. You know how girls' trips get. I saw you pull him into your room." Her hand went to her hair, a nervous tell she hates in other people. "I was drunk," she said. "I barely remember." "It wasn't, we didn't go all the way." I hate that phrase, like morality is a road trip and we can argue about where exactly the state line is. I wanted to ask what she meant by all the way and who she thought she was saving with that calculus. Instead I asked, "What do you remember?" She stared at the faucet. "I remember the bar. I remember kissing. I remember thinking I should stop and my friends telling me it's fine. Everyone does something stupid before they're married. It's like a last release." She said it quickly, like speed could make it less detailed. "I didn't plan it. I didn't plan to find out," I said. She started crying then, the fast tears that feel like they're happening to you rather than because of you. She came toward me with her hands open like surrender. "Please," she said. "It was a mistake. Please don't blow up our life. Our life." The venue deposit, the emails with the menu choices, the hotel block, my mother's dress hanging like a promise in her closet, her father pretending to be stern at the tasting while trying not to cry when the band played the song he used to dance with her to in their kitchen. The apartment lease we just signed under both our names, the list on the fridge titled after with things like refinance and dogs and a weekend in Maine. "I'm canceling the wedding," I said. Her face went slack with something beyond shock. "No," she said. "We can fix this. Nate, come on. We've been together 4 years. You don't throw that away because of one night I barely remember." "One night you remember enough to tell your friends to delete," I said. "One night you lied about the second you got in the car." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you." We stood there with the hum of the refrigerator like a third participant. She wiped her face with her wrist and said, softly, is there someone else? Is that why you're doing this so quick, so cold? The audacity of that made me see white for a second. There isn't someone else, I said. There's me. And there's you. And there's a door. I slept on the couch. She didn't sleep at all. In the morning she put on the kind of makeup you wear to court and went to work like routine could take the edge off reality. I spent 3 hours making phone calls with a voice that sounded like a stranger. The venue coordinator said she was sorry and then said the words non-refundable deposit. The caterer moved us to a credit, which is hilarious if you think about it. The florist told me she could sell the date if she hustled and I told her to hustle. I wrote an email to the guests and sat with the cursor blinking after the words we call this with a kind of vicious thrift. We aren't getting married. Thank you for your love. If you book travel, I'm sorry. That's it. No details. No villain. The villain knows her name. Lila's mother called within an hour. She cried in the way only someone with practice can, and then she asked me to reconsider. People make mistakes, she said. Marriage is about forgiveness. Forgiveness is about remorse, I said. And time. She is remorseful, her mother said quickly. She was drunk. Those friends are a bad influence. That city is a bad influence. It's not her. She's a good girl. I used to hate that phrase and I hated it more then. She's a good person who did a bad thing, I said, because nuance used to be my hobby. I don't want to spend the first year of my marriage unlearning a new definition of trust. Her father came on the line. He cleared his throat like a man about to apologize for something he didn't do. Son, he said, a word that made me want to put my fist through a window. No one is perfect. I'm not asking for perfect, I said. I was asking for the basics. That night Lila came home with flowers. She put them on the table like a threat and said, we should talk. So we did. For hours. We did the timeline. We did the what happened. We did the why. She wiped tears and I handed her tissues like civility could keep us from drowning in the obvious. Somewhere in the middle she asked if we could do counseling. I told her I believed in counselors and I didn't believe in us. She said she would change. I said I didn't know who she was promising to turn back into. Around midnight she took off the ring and slid it across the table like a debt. This feels cruel, she said. You didn't even yell. You're just gone. Maybe that's fair. I didn't yell. I didn't demand to see her phone. I didn't ask for the man's name. I didn't ask if she kept his number or if there were other little doors she'd opened and shut without telling me. I don't think it's strength. I think it's the coldness that shows up when a person who loves you turns your life into a choose-your-own adventure you didn't agree to read. I slept in the guest room that used to be the office. She slept in our bed and at 4 a.m. I heard the small animal sound that grief makes when it thinks it's alone. In the morning she had a bag by the door and the ring on the counter. She said she'd go to her friends for a while. She asked me not to change the locks, which is funny because they're digital and controlled by an app and I could. As she was leaving she turned and said, are you really going to throw us away over this? And I had to put my hands on the back of a chair because my body wanted to grab something. I'm not throwing anything, I said. I'm setting it down before it breaks the table. The next week was a parade of logistics and human nature. Some friends texted me to say they loved me without choosing a side. A few sent the kind of gossip they think is kindness. We always worried about Rowan, as if changing the supporting cast fixes the plot. One of her bridesmaids called to ask if I'd reconsider for the sake of the deposits and I hung up on her because my therapist would later tell me you're allowed. My mother came over with the look she gets when she thinks a casserole can hug a person. She didn't say I told you so about the Bachelorette that I'd been uneasy about. She said, I'm sorry, sweetheart, and sat on the floor with me and sorted the stack of RSVP cards into yes, no, and wish you well. Lila sent an email 3 days later. It was long in the way apologies are when they want to cover every angle. She said she loved me and she was ashamed and she understood if I couldn't forgive her and also that I was being hasty and also that she was going to get help and also that it didn't mean anything and also that it meant she was scared of how big this step was and also that she wanted me and only me. She copied a therapist's intake form with the appointment date highlighted. She attached a photo of us at the beach last year, our heads pressed together like people who thought wind couldn't move them. I wrote back one line, I'm not angry to punish you, I'm finished to protect me. She didn't reply. Her mother called again and said she hoped I wouldn't regret being stubborn and I said stubborn keeps you alive in a storm. Her father sent a text that said be a man about this and I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen because if manhood is always swallowing something that is trying to choke you, I'm stepping out of the club. The vendors did what vendors do. Some kept deposits. Some refunded a little. The venue managed to rebook the date to a couple who wanted a holiday wedding and I got a check in the mail for a percentage that felt like a joke and also felt like relief. I took the ring back to the jeweler and they put it under a bright light like they were interrogating it. They asked me if I wanted store credit and I said I wanted a watch because I wanted something that told time honestly. On what would have been our rehearsal dinner, I went to the diner alone and ordered the pasta she loved and didn't eat any of it. A family at the corner table argued about crayons and I felt a pinch of a future that I had already let go of. I went home and packed a box with the wedding website password and the printed vows I had written in pencil and the Polaroid of the day I had planned the proposal with sticky notes. I put the box on the top shelf of the closet where things go when they need to exist without tripping you. People will tell you there's a moment when the weight lifts. That wasn't my experience. It slid. It redistributed. It learned new tricks. There are days when the kitchen looks the same and I forget for a whole minute and then I see the ring-shaped sunspot on the counter and remember. There are days when I feel angry at an entire industry of last night myths sold to people who don't know the bill comes due at breakfast. There are days when I miss the version of Lila who danced with me in the dark in the living room when the lamp broke and we decided to make do. There are days when I remember the hallway video frame by frame and then force my brain to stop like it's a hand I can move off a hot stove. What I know is this: love is not a courtroom where you argue technicalities about what counts. It's not a scavenger hunt where you find excuses that add up to keeping the prize. It's a door you shut together against the weather, and what she did was open it and tell the wind to be chill. Maybe we could have tried counseling and maybe I could have learned to sleep without waiting for silence to show up with a knife. Maybe a lot of people do. I don't. Last week I took the seating chart down and painted over the tape ghosts it left on the wall. I put the leftover favors in a bag and gave them to a coworker who is getting married in June because waste feels worse than sentiment to me. I called the florist and told her if anybody needs a last-minute arrangement, use our credit. She said, "That's generous," and I said it was efficient and she laughed like she had permission too. I went for a run at dusk and ended up at the bridge where I had once told Lila I loved her out loud. The water didn't care. The gulls didn't care. I stood there and said it into the air again, my own name this time, a ridiculous, earnest mantra, and then I went home to a place that looked like mine again, and I slept through the night for the first time in a month without a dream that involved a hallway and a hand pulling a stranger into a room where I wasn't invited. Maybe that's the whole story. Maybe it's just the first chapter of the next one. Either way, the door is shut. I'm on my side of it. And for the first time since I watched a video on an iPad I wish I had never charged, the quiet in my apartment sounds like quiet and not like a verdict.